A young black boy stood frozen in the middle of the courtroom, his eyes locked onto the woman before him. The moment he spoke, the entire room turned to ice. "You are my mother." A short sentence, yet powerful enough to shake everything. She had walked away from the past, believing she had made the right decision. But as she looked into the boy's eyes, she realized, some mistakes could never be undone. They could only be faced. Could a broken heart ever truly be mended? Before we dive into this story, let us know where you're watching from. Share the name of your city or country in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Tomorrow, we'll bring you another inspiring story, just for you. The story begins. The low hum of Claire's car engine filled the quiet suburban streets as she and Ethan drove in silence. A month had passed since that day in court, the day Ethan shattered the world Claire had carefully built for herself. Now, they sat side by side, but the silence between them was heavy, laden with unspoken words and uncertainties. Claire stole a glance at Ethan. He rested his chin on his hand, eyes fixed on the window. His expression was unreadable, his emotions locked away. She gripped the steering wheel tighter, gathering the courage to speak. "Are you okay?" Ethan shrugged, his gaze never leaving the glass. "I guess." Claire bit her lip, unsure of what to say next. She wanted to bridge the gap between them, but every attempt felt like stepping onto thin ice. Their newfound relationship was fragile, and she feared that one wrong word could cause it all to collapse. The car rolled to a stop in front of Claire's house, a two-story home with a perfectly manicured lawn and flower beds that looked like they had been tended by an expert hand. Ethan's eyes flickered across the house, then hardened for a split second. Claire noticed his reaction. A wave of guilt washed over her. "I know it, looks like a lot." Ethan didn't reply. He quietly opened the car door, slung his backpack over one shoulder, and followed Claire to the front entrance. She slid the key into the lock, pushed the door open, then turned back to him, attempting a smile. "Welcome home." Ethan stepped inside, his sneakers making a faint sound against the polished hardwood floor. His eyes scanned the room, the pristine living area with its luxurious leather sofa, framed paintings on the walls, and neatly arranged bookshelves. Everything here exuded wealth, a stark contrast to the foster homes he had lived in, places with mismatched chairs, threadbare rugs worn down over the years, and an air of imperfection that had somehow felt more human. Claire watched him carefully. She saw the hesitation in his eyes, and her heart tightened. "I know this place isn't what you're used to, but I really want you to feel comfortable here. If you need anything, just let me know, okay?" Ethan gave a small nod but said nothing. He let his backpack slide off his shoulder near the sofa, standing in the middle of the room as if he wasn't sure he belonged there. That evening, Claire made dinner, something simple, spaghetti and garlic bread. She set the table in the dining room, lighting a small candle to ease the tension. When she called Ethan down, he appeared in the doorway, hands buried deep in the pockets of his hoodie. He pulled out a chair and sat across from her, eyes fixed on his plate as she served the food. "When I was your age, this was my favorite meal." Ethan didn't respond. He twirled his fork through the pasta absent-mindedly, lifting a small bite to his mouth before putting it back down. Claire wanted to say something, anything, to close the distance between them, but the words caught in her throat. Later that night, Ethan lay on his bed, staring up at the ceiling. His defenses remained high, walls built over years of disappointment. But as much as he wanted to stay numb, the silence of the house pressed in on him. His throat tightened, and before he could stop it, tears slid down the sides of his face. The next morning, the house was heavy with unspoken words. Claire sat at the kitchen table, absent-mindedly stirring a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. She glanced at the clock, wondering if Ethan would come down for breakfast. She had barely slept, replaying their conversation from the night before over and over in her mind. "I don't belong in this house. I don't belong in your life. His words had cut deeper than she was willing to admit. She had spent her entire career learning how to handle difficult situations with composure, but nothing had prepared her for this. Footsteps pulled her from her thoughts. Ethan appeared in the doorway, still wearing the same hoodie from the night before, his face unreadable. Claire tried to smile. "Good morning." Ethan didn't reply. He walked to the fridge, took out a carton of orange juice, and poured himself a glass. Without a word, he sat across from her, sipping quietly. Claire took a deep breath, summoning the courage to break the heavy silence. "I was thinking, maybe we could do something together today. Just the two of us. What do you think?" Ethan raised an eyebrow, skepticism flickering in his eyes. "Like what?" Claire kept her tone light, careful. "There's a basketball court at the park nearby. I thought maybe we could go shoot some hoops." Ethan let out a quiet snort, a fleeting smirk ghosting across his lips. "You play basketball?" Claire chuckled, a bit sheepish. "I might surprise you. I wasn't too bad back in college." The smirk vanished just as quickly as it had appeared, replaced by that same guarded expression, the invisible walls rising between them once more. "I don't know. I'm not really in the mood." Claire felt the sting of disappointment but nodded nonetheless. "That's okay." Her voice softened. "We don't have to if you don't want to. But if you change your mind, just let me know, all right?" Ethan shrugged, his gaze drifting toward the window. He could feel Claire's eyes on him, the quiet tension in the room pressing against his skin. He just wanted to disappear. Finally, he pushed back his chair and stood up. "I'm going for a walk." He grabbed his hoodie from the back of the chair and made his way toward the door. "Wait!" Claire called out, standing abruptly. "Where are you going?" "I can drive you." Ethan shook his head, avoiding her gaze. "I just need some space." Claire parted her lips as if to protest but then stopped herself. "All right." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Be careful, okay? And if you need anything, call me." Ethan gave a small nod before stepping outside, the door clicking shut behind him. He walked aimlessly through the neighborhood, hands shoved deep into the pockets of his hoodie. The houses around him were big, pristine, their manicured lawns stretching out in front like something from a glossy real estate brochure. The cars parked in the driveways gleamed under the morning sun. Everything was so foreign, so far removed from the life he had always known. His thoughts drifted back to the foster homes he had been shuffled between, cramped houses with peeling paint, outdated appliances that always seemed to be broken. He thought of the foster parents who had promised to care for him, only to treat him like a burden. And now, here he was, in a house that looked like it belonged in a magazine, with a woman telling him she truly wanted him to be part of her life. But how could he believe her? How could he believe anyone? Ethan lowered his head and kicked a loose pebble down the sidewalk. He watched as it tumbled across the pavement, frustration simmering beneath his skin. He didn't know what he wanted, only that this place, this life, didn't feel like his. In the kitchen, Claire sat motionless at the table, her gaze fixed on the empty chair where Ethan had just been. A deep sense of helplessness settled over her, as if she were trying to hold on to something that kept slipping through her fingers. She pulled out her phone, hesitated for a moment, then pressed call. After a few rings, a warm, familiar voice answered. "Claire. Hey, how's it going? How are things?" Claire exhaled sharply, her voice trembling slightly. "Not great. I feel like I'm failing. He's so angry, so distant, and I don't know how to reach him." Linda's tone softened. "Claire, not everything can be fixed overnight. Ethan has been through so much. It's going to take time for him to feel safe enough to open up to you." "I know." Claire's voice cracked. "But it's just hard. I want to do this right, but it feels like everything I do just makes things worse." "That's not true," Linda reassured her. "You care. You're trying. And that alone means more to him than you realize. He might not show it, but deep down, he knows you're here for him." Claire wiped away a tear, nodding even though Linda couldn't see her. "I just want him to understand that I'm not going anywhere." "He will." Linda's voice was gentle. "But you have to give him space to come to that realization on his own. Just keep showing up, even when it's hard. That's how trust is built." Claire took a deep breath, letting Linda's words settle into her, warm and steady. "Thank you. I don't know what I'd do without you. That's what I'm here for." Linda chuckled. "You've got this, Claire. One step at a time." When the call ended, Claire felt a renewed sense of determination. Ethan might not be ready to let her in, but she wasn't giving up. A few hours later, Ethan returned home. He stepped inside quietly, half expecting Claire to interrogate him about where he had been. But she didn't. She was sitting on the couch, a book in her hands, her eyes only flicking up to him with a soft smile. "How was your walk?" Ethan shrugged. "It was fine." "It was fine." Claire nodded. "I left some dinner in the fridge if you're hungry." "No pressure, just letting you know." Ethan hesitated for a second, glancing at her briefly before heading upstairs. He didn't say anything, but something about her calmness made him feel different. Lighter, maybe. For the first time, he wondered, just maybe, if Claire actually meant what she said. The next few days passed slowly. Claire and Ethan maintained their distant yet civil rhythm. Their conversations were polite but laced with an invisible barrier neither dared to cross. Both were cautious, neither willing to take the first step closer. Claire constantly second-guessed herself, afraid that one wrong word might push Ethan further away. Ethan, for his part, still kept his distance. Most of the time, he stayed in the guest room or wandered around the neighborhood. But despite his indifferent facade, he was watching Claire. Testing her. Waiting to see if she would actually follow through on what she had promised. One afternoon, Claire decided to take a risk. She knocked gently on Ethan's door, her heart pounding harder than she cared to admit. "Ethan?" Her voice was soft. "Do you have a minute?" There was a pause before Ethan's voice drifted out, slightly hesitant. I guess." Claire slowly pushed the door open. Ethan was sitting cross-legged on the bed, one earbud loosely hanging from his ear, a notebook open in front of him. He pulled the earbud out and looked up at her, guarded. Claire lifted an old, dusty basketball in her hands. "I was cleaning out the garage," she said, offering a small smile. "Found this and thought, maybe you'd want to shoot some hoops." Ethan stared at the ball, his expression unreadable. For a moment, Claire thought he was going to say no. But then, he shrugged. "Sure." He set his notebook aside. Claire smiled, trying not to let her relief show. "Great. Meet you outside." The basketball court at the park was empty, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows over the concrete. Ethan dribbled the ball slowly, each bounce measured, thoughtful. Claire stood a few feet away, watching, waiting, hoping. "You've got good control," she said, breaking the silence. "Did you play a lot in school?" Ethan nodded. "Sometimes. When I wasn't moving around all the time." Claire's chest tightened at the mention of his past, but she pushed forward. "Well, let's see what you've got." She held out her hands. "Give me a perfect shot." Ethan raised an eyebrow, the corner of his mouth twitching into the faintest smirk. "You sure? You look kinda old for this." Claire laughed, feeling the tension inside her ease just a little. "Careful now, I might just prove to you that age has nothing to do with it." Ethan dribbled the ball a few times, then leaped into the air and shot. The ball arced perfectly, swishing clean through the net without even grazing the rim. "Nice shot." Claire clapped. "All right, my turn." Ethan passed her the ball. Claire focused on the hoop, took a deep breath, and threw. The ball clanked hard against the rim and bounced off with an embarrassingly loud thud. Ethan couldn't hold back his laughter. "Yeah, you're definitely rusty." Claire picked up the ball, grinning. "Give me a break. It's been a while." They kept playing for nearly an hour, their laughter echoing across the empty court. Claire wasn't good, far from it, but she didn't care. What mattered was that Ethan was smiling, even if only for a moment. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, Ethan sat down at the edge of the court and twisted open the water bottle Claire had brought. She sat beside him, stretching her legs out against the cool concrete. "You're really good," she said, glancing at him. "Ever thought about playing for a team?" Ethan shrugged. "I used to like it, but now, it just doesn't feel the same." Claire nodded, sensing there was more behind his words. "Why not?" she asked gently. Ethan hesitated, his gaze fixed on the water bottle in his hands, fingers absent-mindedly peeling at the label. "When you're moving all the time, it's hard to get attached to anything." His voice was quieter now. "Because you never know if you'll still be there tomorrow." Claire's chest tightened at his words. She reached out, resting a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You don't have to worry about that anymore." Her voice was soft but steady. "You're not going anywhere, I promise." Ethan looked at her, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. He wanted to believe her, but trust wasn't something that came easily, not after everything. "That's what they all say," he muttered. "I'm saying it because I mean it," Claire replied firmly. "I know I let you down before, but that's not going to happen again. You might not like it, but you're stuck with me now." A small, reluctant smile tugged at the corner of Ethan's lips. For the first time, he felt the faintest glimmer of hope creeping into his chest. "We'll see." His tone was teasing, but it lacked the coldness it once held. That evening, Ethan surprised Claire by walking into the living room and settling onto the couch. He didn't say anything, just scrolled through his phone while she quietly read her book. Then, out of nowhere, he spoke. "Hey, Judge." Claire looked up, raising an eyebrow. "What?" Ethan still didn't glance at her, his voice quieter this time. "Thanks for today." Claire smiled, a warmth spreading through her chest. "Anytime, Ethan." In that moment, she felt something shift, something fragile, but real. A connection, faint yet promising, like the first flicker of a light that could grow into something meaningful. The following week was a mix of small victories and familiar challenges. Ethan still kept his distance, but he no longer completely avoided Claire. He sat at the dinner table with her, sometimes lingering in the living room after they ate. They didn't talk much, but for Claire, every second of that quiet presence felt like progress. One evening, as she was sorting through old case files in her home office, her fingers brushed against a small, worn envelope tucked between the papers. Her heart skipped a beat. Carefully, she pulled out the letter, her fingers trembling slightly. It was the letter she had written years ago, one she had never sent. Memories crashed over her like a tidal wave. A letter for Ethan, written when he was just 2 years old. In it, she had poured out everything, the guilt, the fear, the desperate hope that he would have a better life without her. But in the end, shame and cowardice had won. She had never sent it. Instead, it had sat there, buried in a drawer, while Ethan grew up never knowing that she had once cared. Claire stared at the faded ink, her vision blurring with unshed tears. Would showing this to Ethan help him, or hurt him even more? She wasn't sure. But something deep inside told her it was time to stop running from the past, no matter how painful it was. The next morning, Claire sat across from Ethan at the kitchen table. He was absent-mindedly scrolling through his phone, completely unaware of the storm raging inside her. She clenched the letter in her hands, inhaled deeply, and spoke. "Ethan." Her voice was quiet but firm. "There's something I want to show you." Ethan looked up, immediately cautious. "What is it?" Claire hesitated, her throat tightening. Then, slowly, she placed the envelope on the table and slid it toward him. "I wrote this a long time ago. For you." Ethan frowned, picking up the envelope. He carefully opened it, unfolding the aged paper inside. His eyes scanned the words, line by line, sentence by sentence. His expression shifted. Confusion. Sadness. Then, anger. The letter read, "Dear Ethan, I don't know if you will ever read these words, but I need to say them. Giving you up was the hardest thing I have ever done. Not a day goes by that I don't think about you, wondering if you are happy, if you are safe, if you know how much I love you. I was too young, too scared, and I thought I was doing what was best for you. But now, all I can do is hope that one day, you will understand. You were never a mistake, Ethan. You were the greatest gift I was ever given. And no matter what, you have always been in my heart. Love, Mom." As he read the last lines, Ethan lifted his gaze to Claire, his eyes dark with pain and uncertainty. "Why didn't you send it?" His voice trembled. Claire clenched her hands together in her lap. "I was afraid," she admitted. "I thought maybe it would just make things harder for you. I was scared you wouldn't want to hear from me." Ethan's jaw tightened. He glanced down at the letter again, his fingers tracing the ink-stained words. "You could have tried," he said, his voice quiet but sharp as a blade. "Even if it didn't change anything, at least I would have known you cared." Claire inhaled shakily. "I know." Her voice cracked. "And I will regret that for the rest of my life. But I'm here now, Ethan. And I want to make this right." Ethan carefully folded the letter and slipped it back into the envelope. He stared at it for a long moment before speaking again. "You wrote this when I was 2. His voice was eerily calm. "After that, did you ever think about me?" Claire reached out, resting her hand lightly on the table near him, her fingers trembling. "Every day," she whispered. "Every single day, Ethan. You were always in my heart, even when I was too afraid to face the truth." For the first time, Ethan let the walls around him crack. His shoulders slumped, and a single tear slid down his cheek. "I just need to know, why?" His voice broke. "Why didn't you want me?" Claire's chest tightened, the weight of his words pressing into her like a knife. She stood, moving around the table, and knelt beside him. "It was never that I didn't want you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I wanted you to have everything I couldn't give you. I thought I was protecting you. But I was wrong. I made a terrible mistake, and I will spend the rest of my life making it right." Ethan wiped his tears away, his expression torn between anger and something far more fragile. "I don't know if I can forgive you." Claire nodded, her own tears falling freely. "I understand." Her voice was soft. "But I'll be here, whenever you're ready. I'm not going anywhere." Silence stretched between them, heavy and unspoken. The letter lay on the table between them, a quiet testament to the pain of the past. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was a beginning, a fragile, tentative step toward something that might one day become healing. That night, Ethan sat alone in his room, gripping the letter in his hands. He read it again. And again. The words began to settle inside him, pressing against the walls he had built so carefully. A part of him still burned with anger. But another part, a quieter, more uncertain part, wanted to believe Claire's words were true. He wasn't sure if he was ready to forgive her. But for the first time, he thought, maybe he could try. The next morning was eerily quiet. Claire sat at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped tightly around a warm mug of coffee. The letter from the night before weighed heavy on her mind, the conversation replaying over and over in her head. Had she said the right thing? Or had she only hurt Ethan more? The sound of footsteps pulled her from her thoughts. She looked up just as Ethan walked into the kitchen, still in his sleep clothes, his hair messy from the night before. In his hand was the envelope she had given him. "Good morning." Claire's voice was gentle, cautious, trying to gauge his mood. Ethan didn't answer right away. He placed the letter on the table, then pulled out a chair and sat across from her, his expression unreadable. "I read it again," he said quietly, his fingers absently running along the edge of the envelope. Claire nodded, her heartbeat pounding in her chest. "It's hard," Ethan admitted, staring down at the table. "Reading what you wrote, it makes me feel two things at the same time." He hesitated, as if struggling to find the words. Claire leaned in slightly, her voice steady but soft. "A part of you wants to believe that I really care." Ethan nodded, his shoulders sagging just a little. "But the other part?" He let out a quiet, frustrated sigh. "The other part is still angry." His hands clenched into fists. "If you cared that much, why didn't you fight for me? Why didn't you come back?" Claire's chest tightened, the weight of his words sinking deep inside her. She swallowed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I can't change what I did, Ethan." Her head dipped slightly, fingers gripping each other in her lap. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness right now. But I hope that, in time, I can show you that. I'm here. And I'm not leaving again." Ethan stared at her for a long moment, his eyes filled with turmoil. "It's just hard to believe." Claire nodded, her vision blurring with unshed tears. "I understand. And I'm willing to take as much time as you need to rebuild that trust." Ethan glanced down at the envelope again, his fingers tracing the edge of the paper. "I don't know if I can forgive you." Claire held her breath. "But I think I want to try." She blinked rapidly, swallowing the wave of emotion rising in her throat. "That's all I could ever ask for." Her voice was barely more than a whisper. "Thank you, Ethan. Thank you for giving me a chance." That afternoon, Claire suggested they go out for a bit. Ethan hesitated at first, but when she mentioned the community center nearby, he perked up slightly, curiosity flickering in his eyes. When they arrived, the center buzzed with energy. Kids raced up and down the indoor basketball court, while another group gathered around a long table in a brightly lit art room, painting and sketching. Ethan's gaze lingered on the basketball court, his posture subtly shifting. Claire smiled, relieved to see his interest spark naturally. "Go ahead," she encouraged. "I'll be right here watching." Ethan nodded before jogging toward the court, blending effortlessly into a group of boys his age. Claire sat on a bench along the sidelines, watching as Ethan moved across the court with ease. His footwork was quick, confident. For the first time in weeks, she saw a genuine, unguarded smile on his face, a smile free of hesitation or forced politeness. While Ethan played, Claire struck up a conversation with a woman sitting beside her. Her name was Susan, a longtime volunteer at the center. "We run mentorship programs for kids in the foster system," Susan explained. "We try to give them a safe space to connect and develop their strengths." Claire listened, her mind turning over the possibilities. Maybe this was exactly what Ethan needed, not just her support, but a place where he could feel a sense of belonging. A community where he was understood and valued. When the game wrapped up, Ethan jogged over to Claire, his hoodie sleeve wiping the sweat from his forehead. "Did you see me play?" His tone carried a trace of pride. "Of course," Claire grinned. "You were incredible out there." Ethan shrugged, trying to downplay it, but the small, satisfied smirk at the corner of his lips gave him away. "Hey," Claire said gently. The woman I was talking to earlier mentioned that they have some mentorship programs here. I thought if you were interested, we could check them out. Ethan frowned. Like what? There's one for kids who love basketball, Claire explained. They pair you up with older players, mentors who can help you improve your skills. If you're serious about it, you might even get noticed by school teams or recruiters. She paused for a moment before adding. There's also an art program, in case that interests you more. Ethan thought for a second, then gave a slow nod. Maybe the basketball one. Claire's heart lifted with quiet relief. All right. She smiled. We'll look into it together. That evening, they sat on the couch, watching a movie. Claire stole a glance at Ethan. He looked more at ease than he had in weeks. The barriers he had built around himself seemed to be lowering, little by little. Hey, she said softly. Ethan turned to her. What? I just wanted to say that I'm proud of you, she said. For letting yourself open up, even when it's not easy. You're stronger than you think. Ethan looked down, his ears tinged red. Thanks, he murmured. Claire smiled, warmth spreading through her chest. Things weren't perfect, and she knew they had a long road ahead. But for the first time, it felt like they were truly moving forward, one step at a time. The power of forgiveness. Sometimes, forgiveness isn't just a choice, it's a journey. This story reminds us that no matter how painful the past may be, there is always a chance for healing and growth. Have you ever faced a difficult decision in your life? Do you believe that everyone deserves a second chance? Share your thoughts in the comments, your story might inspire someone else. If this story resonated with you, share it with your friends and family to spread the message of love, forgiveness, and hope. Thank you for watching and supporting our channel. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another inspiring story. Let's continue spreading kindness, one story at a time. Wishing you peace and happiness. Disclaimer: the stories shared on this channel are collected from various sources and do not represent any specific individual or organization. They are rewritten with the assistance of AI to promote positive values in life. If there are any inaccuracies, please understand and forgive them. May you find joy and inspiration in all that you do.